and what's happened during that creation, both on the divine spiritual side and also on the physical side, where the angels have, or some of the angels have rebelled and God flicks them out of heaven. We learn that God is powerful, that he's creative, that he's got this awesome creation that he's creating, and all the angels are really glorifying him. And then we move into the story, the poem of creation, where God is creating spaces. Basically, the three domains of their universe was the sky, the sea, and the earth. And so he creates those three domains, and then he fills them with all sorts of things, a multitude of things, and really shows off. It's really a story about, or it's a poem about God and what God is about, to really tell the Israelites and the cultures around them who God is. It's not really a scientific report, it's just a poem. And we learn next about the specific creation of humanity and how humans are both immortal and in this physical world, but they're also breathed the life of God, the breath of God, which brings them also into the spiritual world. So they have two parts to them. And that's really key as well, is that we're not just beasts, we're not just driven by instinct, but we also have this other part that I think Dai said last time about self-control. We know how to say no. We can say no to things that look good because in the long run, there's a better option for us. And so we have that ability, whereas animals don't. And then the third story was the fourth story is the fall of those humans. They're given free choice, and that's a key component as well, and they fail this choice of staying away from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so what are the consequences for that, and how that plays into their world? And they're kicked out of the garden, and they're left to do their own thing outside the garden without really God's help and without God's blessing. It's just out there in the wilderness, and they have to now find and grow their own food, and they have to find the animals and be shepherds and whatnot to find their own food. So now that brings us into the children of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. I think I went over this pretty quickly, but these are the attributes of God and humans that we've so far been able to tease out of the story. We'll continue to go through that. But these are very important for us to really kind of get a grasp of what the attributes are that the story is trying to tell us. Okay, so after that quick recap, here's chapter 5, Cain and Abel. Remember, we're listening. We're going to review the story afterwards. So
I already feel nervous about having to
Rachel, it's
listen
not
really
me.
carefully.
I'm stressed.
I'm sweating.
All right, Cain and Abel. After leaving the garden, Adam and Eve started a family. When their first son, Cain, was born, Eve said, "God has helped us create another human." Not long after that, Adam and Eve had a second son, and they named him Abel. Their sons grew. Cain farmed the land, and Abel shepherded animals. At one harvest, they brought gifts from their work and offered them to God. Cain brought God some of his farm produce, and Abel brought the firstborn and best cuts of his meat, of the meat of his herd. God liked Abel and his offering, but Cain and his offering didn't get God's approval. Cain was upset and sunk into a bad mood. "Why are you so angry?" God asked him. "Why the sulking? If you do well, won't you be accepted? And if you don't do well, sin is lying in wait for you, ready to pounce. It's out to get you. You have to rule over it." Soon after that, Cain suggested to his brother that they take a walk. While they were walking in the field, Cain attacked and killed his brother. Later on, God asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "How should I know?" Cain replied. "Am I supposed to watch over him?" "What have you done?" God asked. "Your brother's blood is calling to me from the ground. Listen, from now on you'll till it, but you will get nothing but curses from this ground. You'll be driven from this blood-soaked ground. You'll be a restless wanderer on earth." Cain replied to God, "My punishment is too much. I can't take it. You've thrown me off this land from your presence. I'm a homeless wanderer on earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." God replied, "No. Anyone who tries to harm you will receive 7 times your punishment." Then God put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might attack him. Cain left immediately and traveled east. Later, Adam and Eve had another son named Seth, who gave them numerous grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years. Cain eventually started a family of his own and built a city that he named after his first son, Enoch. Enoch's great-great-grandson, Lamech, had 2 wives. Their children developed great skills for playing musical instruments and forging bronze and iron tools and weapons. Lamech once bragged to his wives that he killed a man and a boy because they each hurt him, and that if Cain was avenged 7 times, that he would be avenged 77 times. At this time on the earth, some humans trusted God and proclaimed his faithfulness, while others did not like to remember him at all. All right.
Uh-oh. That was a lot.
Question, you want us to reciprocate all that?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Let's go over the story. What?
I know
just
that Adam
happened?
lived to be 930 years old.
That's a good data point. Okay.
That was about 3/4
Okay,
of the way
God
through.
helped Adam and Eve have a child.
Yep.
Cain.
Okay. Okay.
According to Eve, yeah.
And then soon after, they had another son named Abel.
Then Cain took care or cared over the livestock, right?
The produce.
Yeah, one
Oh,
was
yeah,
vegan and one
produce.
wasn't.
The produce, the food.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Abel took over or took care of the animals.
Yeah, basically took care of animals, yes.
But Abel brought a better offering.
Yeah, I said God liked Abel. I
Yeah.
didn't like the way that said that. Because then the implication is that he didn't like Cain. But anyways, we can come back to that. He liked Abel and he liked his sacrifice, which was
yeah.
described how?
It was
Choice
like-
cuts of meat or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it
Of
sounded
best
like the
cuts.
best of the best.
Yep.
Mark was really testing us because that's the longest story we've had so far.
Yeah.
It was very
Only
difficult
a
to pay
page.
attention.
We're good.
All I heard was someone ate vegetables and someone ate meat. God liked the guy who ate meat.
Leave it to the youth pastor to just
What does
zero in on
that
one thing.
Yep, sorry. Moving
Okay,
forward.
continuing on in the story.
Yep. What did God say?
God said to Cain, well, first he didn't approve of his sacrifice, and then he said, "Why do you look so mad?" I can't remember the exact word. Why are you throwing a temper tantrum? I'll put it in my words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And be careful because sin is waiting to get you.
Yep.
Again,
Yep.
Di's words.
Wait, was that before he
Yeah.
killed
Yep.
Abel?
He was warning him.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Then-
Cain gets really frustrated, kills
He
Abel.
kills Abel.
God approaches Cain, kind of calls him out and says, "Hey, where's your brother?" He goes, "I don't know. How would I know where he is?" Kind of gives him like a snarky response is what it came across as.
He's a teenager,
sure.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I have no idea what happened right there. I know that there was a marking put on his head.
there
Yep.
was a mark.
Yeah. What does he do to Cain?
He curses him.
Yeah.
You're cursed to.
Wait, so Cain didn't admit what he did?
Ooh, did he
Ever.
admit it?
I can't remember.
No.
Okay. So
Okay.
he
Doesn't
didn't
say that
admit.
he admitted it. He admitted
Good
it.
point.
It's good.
Not
find.
owning his
Yeah.
stuff.
He didn't own it.
Okay.
But then he got a mark on his head.
Was it on his head or was it just on him?
Just on him.
On him.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't know where I got the head part from. Maybe it was because my head hurt during that story.
Okay, then this is where we start to lose ourselves a
This is
little.
where
There was-
then Cain
Is-
goes
He goes east.
east,
He's going to wander.
has children, has a great grandson,
Lamech.
Lamech.
And Adam and Eve have another kid named Seth.
Oh, good job.
Yep.
Lamech makes iron or something? Is an iron worker?
Yep.
Okay.
He's a metal worker.
And then was it Lamech that brags about killing somebody?
Right. And then what does
Yep.
he do? Yeah.
What in the
But
world
because
is that in there
someone-
for?
Because someone,
Yeah,
a
that whole
young
part
man, was
was
it a young man and an old man?
A man and a boy. Yeah.
A man and a boy? Yeah, it was a man and a boy.
That last paragraph.
This is
he-
all for the
really got me.
entertainment of our fans right now.
And, but he wanted to like say, like, yeah, I took those guys out. And then talked about avenging Cain's death, not 7 times, but 77 times. Was it
Well, he
70
likened
times
his
7.
7? Yeah,
revenge on him would be the same as revenge on Cain.
there we go.
But his would be 77 times. So like
Who?
Yep.
super. Lamech.
Oh.
Remember, God tells Cain, hey, if anybody hurts you, then they're going to get the same punishment 7 times over, right? And Lamech goes, oh, well, I'm way better than that. I'm going to get 77 times.
Okay, thanks for clarifying
I think
that.
there's just
I was a little
there's
lost
a
on
lot
that
of
part.
I don't know this whole family dynamics weird. I feel like there's a lot of pride thus far that we're seeing.
Yeah, for
A lot
sure.
of pridefulness.
Yeah.
not willing to own your sin
Yep.
and just willing to confront the sin and
Yep.
Yeah.
move forward with it.
Yeah, I feel like if God says, "Where's your brother?" it's a trick question because he already knows where your brother is. So why deny that you did anything?
Yep.
But
Yep. So what do we learn about God in this story?
whew,
Like, what is his initial response to Cain? Well, Cain's sacrifice, right? So he doesn't, we already said that he doesn't approve of it, but then he goes and talks to Cain and does what?
he warns him, "Be careful,
Yeah.
and here's what you can do."
Yep.
But why didn't he like what he brought
know.
to God?
Yeah.
Part of me feels like, did Cain maybe withhold? Like, instead of giving him like a full offering, he kept something for himself rather than giving
Whereas
God.
Abel brought like
Abel
the
probably-
best of the best
Yep.
that he had to give.
But you have to go backwards even one more question and say, how did they even know? Did God ever tell them they have to give a sacrifice? Where's that? That wasn't a part of the story that we read so far.
Yeah.
So was it just their own free will love? And it wasn't good enough for Cain, or were they ever told to? And they were given directions and he didn't meet the directions. That's
Like,
what we
why
don't
would
know.
they feel led to give something to God? I mean, other than like, hey, I love God, I adore God, I want to give him something like a gift. But I don't,
That's
we
a great
don't,
point.
we
'cause
don't know
haven't,
that.
We haven't heard, unless I'm wrong, but from our previous stories, anyone sacrificing something to God, right? This is like the first that somebody is like giving something to God.
One time I was thinking about this passage of scripture, and I kept thinking about how I love all of my children, and if my children give me a present, even if it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen, I'm going to tell them how much I love it. So where is that dynamic? Like, I feel like we miss something in this story where we don't understand, and it must not be important if it's not in the story, but we miss something in the what was this missing? Why was it not an approved sacrifice? Because wouldn't you just love what your child brings to you?
Yeah.
Which means that he wasn't, or God wasn't acting in that role at this time, right? So what role was he acting in?
He wasn't acting in what role?
The father to child
True, okay.
relationship role.
True.
It still feels like God is like this manager of the earth and everything that belongs to it. And like he's just kind of, I don't know how else to say, like not running the show, but he's just kind of saying like, here are the guidelines, here are the rules. Now go and do, like now go and work. But we're not seeing that. But I think we saw the intimacy though with Adam and Eve, where God, I remember it said he walked in the garden with them. But right now, I'm not sensing from the story that's that type of father-son intimacy we're getting.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah, I
a
agree.
hands-on, I'm going to tell you every single thing you need to do in this garden, right? It was just like in the evening, he walked with them and just enjoy their company.
Yeah, we said he was relational, right? I
Right.
think that was the
So
word
boil
we
down
gave
your
it.
comment into what's this attribute of God? The comment of God is just like setting up all the rules and setting up all the systems and just like letting things play out. Wheels turning.
We might need you to help us.
Is there a specific word you're getting?
I think he's hands off, right? He's like you said, he's set up this universe, this reality, and he's not going to micromanage every little thing about
So
it, right?
he almost is like a manager, like you said, Tony. Like
I
he
kinda
makes the
felt
big
like it.
decisions.
Like he laid down the law and said, "This is what you need to do," and then he kind of stepped back, and then every time humanity does something, it's somehow we
Okay, that
screw it
messes
up.
with me. I don't know if I want to go down this. This could be way off track,
it.
but that messes with me because if you are loving or nurturing or relational, I don't know, don't you want to prevent huge screw ups? And I know that goes back to the free will, free choice thing, I guess, but I don't know. Don't you want to kind of steer a little bit like, maybe you want to do something different, which I guess he kind of does to Cain when he warns him, but I'm looking at you and you're not
saying,
going to
like,
help.
"You sure you want to make that choice?" Yeah.
Well, he didn't tell Cain right away, like, this is the best thing that I am expecting out of you. Like, this is why I didn't like your sacrifice, right? He didn't say anything about, I didn't tell you to do a sacrifice. It's just like, hey, I see that you're angry. That's okay to be angry a little bit, but be careful, right? Because if you keep going down this, right, that's kind of a mentoring relationship with Cain going, hey, be careful. You can sin. You haven't sinned yet, right? The anger is still okay, but curb it. And
Does it? I don't know. Like, because my mind thinks in sports terms, almost like that God's like a referee. Like, we know the rules, we know what to do, what not to do, and God will point out if you break one of the rules. Like, He will.
I don't know. I don't want to picture God as blowing a whistle on a foul all the time.
Yeah,
It's not really the
but
picture I
that's
want.
not. Yeah, that's not what. Yeah.
Okay, what if we sidespin a little bit to Cain and Abel? Because there has to be a motivation for Cain to kill Abel, and in my mind, that's jealousy. So if jealousy is there,
To the point of killing, murdering.
yeah,
someone.
when did it pop up? Did it only pop up when Cain's sacrifice was rejected, or was it even already there? Like, oh, well, my brother made a sacrifice. I guess I have to, and I hope it's as good. Or I almost wonder, like, if that's the warning of don't be mad. Don't be, there's the teaching moment, I guess. I don't know how to finish that thought, but I proposed it.
yeah.
I feel like there's jealousy, and also that's where, like, because I feel like as humans, we're very into comparing ourselves to others. And so I feel like that's comparison also comes into play. Like comparing, well, why is my gift not as good? And why is what I have to offer not equal to my brother? And that just trickles down to where we are now as humans with comparison.
This is like one of the first big moments of comparison that we've heard about, where there's like jealousy coming out of it and whatnot.
Well, so this is an important human.
Can I add that?
There's something wrong with humans here.
What are you going to add?
Great question.
You want to add something?
Because I guess we don't want to say all humans are jealous, but they're definitely capable of jealousy.
Doesn't every human compare at some point?
Yeah.
Yes. I just don't feel like it's possible to not.
Yeah, rich or poor, healthy or not. I mean, I feel like everyone compares.
If you
at
say
some
you don't
point.
compare, I just don't believe you.
I think it boils down to pride, right? I mean, a lot of things do, but it's essentially
Is that the root of it? Yeah.
Cain feels like he's second rate to his brother, right? He's not. He knows enough to not blame God, but he's kind of blaming Abel and saying, "Hey, there's this guy in front of me, right?" And so the pride goes, "Hey, if I'm not number one, I want to be number one. How do I do number one without changing my behavior? I'm going to get rid of number one, right?" And so that pride comes in and goes, "Hey, there's no laws yet, I guess, because this is just like a family."
That was really well said, Mark.
Yeah, that was a good
And
way to
so-
sum that
Is
up.
pride
So
on there?
Can I add pride?
Yes,
like
for
we're
sure.
prideful.
Definitely
We are
add
definitely
pride.
prideful. And that goes into a lot of the things that we've already talked about, right? We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to take the blame, right? And so this is about humanity wanting to look good despite us knowing that we're not good.
That was really hard work to get to that.
Yeah, but it's interesting that his choice is not to change his own behavior, but to remove obstacles, even to the death of a sibling, his only brother at this point in time, right? Like, how to us that seems totally like, why would you do that, right? But there must have been other interactions between Abel and Cain that we just don't know about, and maybe this wasn't a one-time thing, but just like over and over again, Abel's bringing the best stuff again, right? And it's like, no matter what I do, maybe. But he hasn't. But that doesn't even say that in the story. So we're kind of reading into it. But
So back to the attribute of God. I know that he chose basically like which sacrifice was better, but also I find it interesting later on that even though Cain killed Abel, he didn't really seem to punish him for that. Really, like, did he like
yeah, he did.
really fully?
Well, he cursed him.
But he still didn't. He put a mark on him to keep him safe. Isn't that what
Right.
happened?
Well, he put a mark on him to keep other people from taking vengeance and going even further than where God went for the punishment.
But I hear what you're saying. I think where you're going with that is he didn't maybe reject him forever.
Yeah.
He could have just struck him dead.
Yeah, he could have been like, you killed
Yeah.
your brother for no real reason.
Well, what is Cain's occupation at this point in time before he does this? What is he doing?
He works the ground.
Yeah. Farmer? Is that what
He's
he
a
is?
farmer, right?
Yeah.
He's got a lot of produce. He's enough produce to give some to God, right? And so he's at least semi-successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then his curse is what? You remember what the actual curse was?
Nope. I'll be honest. I don't remember.
The
The
ground.
toil, yeah.
The
of
ground kept coming up, right? There's blood on the ground. The
Yes.
ground is crying up, complaining about their brother, right? And so he's cursing the ground and says, hey, Cain, you are not going to be able to get any produce out of this ground anymore, right? And so your whole livelihood, everything you know, has been wiped out. You don't know how to do that anymore. You're going to have to wander the earth. You're going to have to be a gatherer. You can't be a farmer anymore, right? And so it's like technology in that, I'm just kind of going off here, but technology has progressed towards farming, right? And then God goes, nope, sorry, Cain, you're back to hunter-gatherer, right?
And if you're a gatherer, then you rely on other people. And they could be the very people that want to hurt you. So that's why there's a mark on you to protect you.
Well, you're not necessarily relying on other people, but you're relying on just like the wild earth providing
sure.
your food. And so he goes east, right? He goes east away from the family and the people that he knows, but he's also concerned about other people coming after him. And
So he kind of loses everything he knows, though.
Yes.
His trade, his family.
Yep.
Now he has to go out and kind of restart life all over again.
yep.
No.
It's interesting that God doesn't go, okay, you're dead too, right? It's kind of like, all right, well, I'm going to punish you. There's consequences here, but death isn't the consequence right now. It's
Death isn't the worst consequence, maybe.
that's good, yeah.
And also, a set of parents lost both their kids out of this. So that's super sad.
Maybe there's something here too. I mean, I should be asking questions, but there's something about God saying, hey, there's some still redeemable aspect of Cain here that I still want some relationship here, Cain.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
I
going
feel
to
like
just wipe out everything.
if he killed him, then there's no chance for Cain to learn from what he did and realize that it was wrong.
Right.
But does that now go back to that loving trait of God? That loving father that, yeah.
Well,
that
it
he
goes
loved
back to
Cain?
relationship, right?
Yeah.
God really wants relationship, right? And if he cuts off the relationship, then you can't have a relationship, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's a good question. Why didn't God stop Cain from killing Abel? If God knows everything,
Doesn't that go back to the
Free will.
Yeah, free will, free choice.
That's my answer to 95% of the things.
The go-to.
Yeah.
He must know it's headed that direction. I mean, he's God, but because he warns him, this is going to get a lot worse. If you continue down this path, you have a chance right now to make it right
yeah,
before you make a choice you can't take back.
yeah.
But then he allowed him to then make the decision,
Yeah.
even though he knew what he was going to do. But then you have to suffer the consequences of your decision. So it's like,
Well, this goes back
No.
to why would he put a tree in the middle of a garden and then say, don't touch this tree?
yep.
Well, they have the freedom to obey or not obey, be in relationship or not be in relationship,
Which
love
pla-
or not love.
Which plays into the attribute that Tony was kind of teasing out of God is setting up the universe and the reality and letting us play in that sandbox. And then dealing out consequences because he's that judge, right? He's the consequence guy. So I'm not sure how to boil that down into a specific attribute, but maybe hands off or not necessarily hands off, but
It really goes back to choice. He gives us the ability to
choice is very, very important.
choose.
Gives
Yeah.
choice.
Even bad choices. I mean, he lets us make the bad choices.
He appears to not be too shaken up in that he's going to give us choice and we're going to make bad ones. That
Yeah,
doesn't appear to
he's
throw
not-
him off too much.
He's not forceful. Like, he's not forcing you to do anything. So in that way, he is hands off because he allows for choice.
And if he's a God who has a plan, which I guess, I don't know if we've decided on that yet, but if he is orderly and intentional, which are some of the words we've used, and he has a plan, this is not rattling him so much like they're going to mess up my whole plan if they make that bad decision. He's He's okay with letting us mess up. I don't know what the attribute is there, but not worried.
Thus far in the story, God is just still so mysterious. It's like we're still just trying to figure out so much about his character right now in all this. We know he's loving and he's a creator and he's caring and thoughtful and orderly, but I think there's just so much more to this where I'm like, man.
Maybe it's patience. Like God is willing to play that long game of hopefully these guys will come around and make the right decisions. And you made a bad decision? Okay, well, let's keep trying and keep going.
I like patience.
I could go with patience.
Yeah.
All right, last question. So we have 2 acts of disobedience and or sin, Adam and Eve and Cain. What is the pattern here of how God is responding to this disobedience?
The first thing that pops into my head is they're cast away or sent away or sent further away from him.
Is there anything dealing with relationship? We've kind of talked about this already.
Their relationship with him?
Like so does he automatically just, hey, kicks him out of the garden, kicks him out of the outside garden, and away you go? Or is there some kind of like
Well, he comes to them and he questions them. He
Yeah,
asks
he always
them.
asks about the
Yeah.
exact disobedience.
Doesn't
act
come
that
down
they
with a
committed.
sledgehammer.
He gives them a chance to admit to it too. Like
Yeah.
he asks intentionally knowing what they already did,
Yeah,
giving them a chance to confess what they did.
yep.
And I feel like he almost gives them both reset options. Like, okay, you might have messed up this one time. Go ahead, now you're out of the garden, but now you're in a new garden. And now you're going to the east. You have a second chance at all this. So both times second chances.
What was the question that you asked? God comes to Cain and says, "What have you done?" Was that the question he asked? And the way you read it was your interpretation of it. But I think we have to think about different ways that question could be posed. Because it could be posed, "What have you done? Like you're so dumb." Or it could be posed in anger. "What have you done?" Or it could be like, "Oh, what have you done? Why did you do that?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it could be love driven, or it could, that's how I choose to interpret it, that it was this opportunity to bridge the distance that is created by our bad choices or sin, if that's the word you use. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, there's more questions, but that's enough time we have, or that's all the time we have.
And
so
we
thank you.
honestly need to go take a break. It's hard
Lots
work.
of good thoughts. So I recommend you go read the story and kind of ask the questions of, hey, what am I learning about God through all this? How he interacts with humans? What do I learn about humans about this? And also, like, what are the problems in the story? There's lots of things that are just like we wrestle with in today's modern world. Like, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. How would this make sense? So encourage you to do that. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.